Hey Clashes, what are the best equipments for every single hero? Because by now there's a lot of different equipment options, and the question now is, what should you upgrade first? Well, if you're not as big of a gemmer as I am, and you obviously don't have everything maxed out, but you still want to have that nice progression boost, make sure if you're buying anything of those in-game offers, or for example the event pass, that you're supporting your favorite content creator. And if you would like to support this channel and like videos like these, make sure to support with code iTzu. Appreciate that, but now let's dive into the overall rankings to figure out what are the best equipments right now in the game. And for that, we're jumping from hero to hero and from strategy to strategy, because in my opinion, ranking every single equipment just based on the hero and stuff like that does not work and is completely misleading for everyone out there. Because, well, if you're looking at this ranking, you could argue that the invisibility vial is the best equipment for the queen. Well, in most cases you would be right, but if someone is playing Electro Dragons or Super Dragons, this statement would be completely misleading for them and causing them to invest their resources into the wrong equipment. And I know how hard it is to obtain those ore resources, to unlock them and get them, or you have to actually pay a lot of money to get those. So you want to make sure that the investment you're putting into the game is going into the right direction, you upgrade the right equipment. Well, let's start with the first strategy. The arrow spam, which means like Hydra, Dragon Riders, Electro Dragons, Super Dragons, all those good dragon strategies. Well, this is the best combination. As I said, I will share a couple of really good synergies, which is, for example, the new one, the Hero Puppet and the Frozen Arrow. It is the one with the most, by far most potential, and you get so much out of it. Why is that so good? Well, you typically have the king nearby your queen, so he can tank. And if whenever something is switched to your queen defense-wise, you can either use the ability so you are generating healers, or you could just freeze it, because in those attack strategies a lot of times you have a ton of spells to support your dragons, but as well your queen to get damage off her. The reason why this is just such a good combination is you can turn your queen into a queen charge for the late game, which is synergizing really well with the king equipment we will take a look at in just a second. But at the same time, it's risky. It has a lot of potential, but it's risky because you do not have the invisibility. So if you're not having the multitasking, things could go wrong really quick. So you can combine, as we did before, the Frozen Arrow equipment. You could just combine the Healer Puppet with the Invisibility Vial. That's as well a good combination, especially good if you do not want to invest the resources into the Frozen Arrow because it's quite expensive. But if you want to invest the resources, what you can combine that with as well is the Invisibility Vial. The other combinations with the Archer Puppet and the Giant Arrow are just not as good overall, and you should kind of forget those two equipments for most of the dragon attacks. As well, the Giant Arrow, let's talk about it. I mean, you can already clearly see it's always on the last spot. The reason is those rankings are for the higher town levels. Let's say like town of 15, town of 16, because this is where I feel like I can give you the most concrete answers to all of those questions about the equipment. This is what I have played as well, where I would say I am pretty confident with what I'm showing you ranking-wise. The Giant Arrow is just damage-wise not good enough, and it's just so inconsistent. Like, the queen is always stepping in a random direction, and it's really hard to predict what the correct angle will be in the end. So with that, it's just not that good. Don't invest your resources there. It is just a resource waste, and there's always better options you should invest your resources into otherwise. But let's move on to the smash attacks. A smash attack means super boulder attacks, means super witch, or for example Electro Titan attacks, or for example a Root Rider attack combined with like a Warden Walk. But on this one, we have clear winners. The invisibility with the Frozen Arrow is just a really good combination. The frozen effect on the back end of the base is giving you so much. In the entry point, it's not as crucial because most of the buildings are getting like really taken care of quickly anyways. But on the back end monolith and things like that, it is a game changer. If you don't want to put the resources in there, a good combination as well is the invisibility with the Healer Puppet. Works great as well. If you want to go a huge risk, again, you can use the combination of the Frozen Arrow and the Hero Puppet. All of those three combinations are really good, but I would suggest them in the order I mentioned them. Otherwise, let's move on to the queen charge. Queen charge is an interesting thing. Queen charge is a really interesting topic because I have already seen so many players losing their queen in her ability. Because the number one equipment is still for the queen charge the invisibility vial. But the frozen arrow is giving you a lot of power, a lot of potential in your attacks, but is putting you at a certain risk. Because the bonus stats of this equipment is just damage. Which is typically really good stats for the queen, but compared with the archer puppet, which is typically the king of queen charges, or more like the queen of queen charges, this one gives you the most important stats, which is health recovery when using the ability and damage. This synergy is just insane. It's making them always one of the best equipments for queen charges. So the question is now, do you want to have more damage, but have the risk of your queen dying her ability, or do you want to have the safer option? I would highly recommend to play maybe for a couple of attacks without your auto ability on. You can turn that out in the options. If you lose the queen a lot of times without using her ability, you should not use the frozen arrow, because you will have your queen dying her ability a lot of times. Then instead, you should just use the common combination, which is the invisibility and the archer puppet. Those three equipments are by far the best for the queen charges. An interesting mention I want to do as well, though, because I have seen it sometime, from time to time again, from some people in the community, which I want to give a try for sure, but I cannot say anything about it just yet because I don't know how strong it is the archer puppet, it's the healer puppet, healer puppet with a frozen arrow. So you're kind of trying to generate healers really early on, because it kind of feels like you have no ability anyways a lot of times with the frozen arrow, but I don't know. Let's see how strong that is. But the recommendation right now for me, which I would give you, is if you're a really good attacker, go with invisibility and frozen arrow. If you're you know how to queen charge, but you're always multitasking is a bit harder, then you should go with invisibility and the archer puppet. Let's move on though to the super archer blimps. This one is quite easy. It's kind of like the same thing as with smash attacks, where you have the combination of invisibility and the frozen arrow, or invisibility and the healer puppet. As well, healer puppet and frozen arrow is an option, but I would not recommend it on this one as much, because you don't have any freezes to save your queen, because you invest everything already in the super archer blimp. So with that, go for the other options, invisibility frozen or invisibility with the healer puppet. Let's move on to the hero dives. Common combinations are like with Zappalalo, for example, where I would say that the common combination right now, before the frozen arrow, was invisibility with the healer puppet. Worked really well together. You even had sometimes the healer puppet spawning the healers and then transition over to the royal champion, so you always had great value out of them. And well, you can now use the frozen arrow instead. A lot of times you get a ton of value out of it, but again, it's depending on if you want to put the resources in there. The frozen arrow is not like the craziest upgrade to the healer puppet, but it's nice to have for sure. And if you have access to those really highly leveled equipments, then the frozen arrow, I think, is a little bit better. With that, I think we're done with the queen. Let's move on to the barbarian king. When talking about the barbarian king equipments, we have to mention the giant gauntlet bug. This right now is really messing with the rankings, and this is why a lot of those things are going to be in the tier list there will be. Which means, what exactly is this? If you're using the epic equipment, which has overall on the max level up to 60% damage reduction. This can be changed though with an interaction with the Warden Eternal Tome ability. Which means if you use the Warden ability and you have this king inside the Eternal Tome ability, then the damage reduction is getting overwritten from the Warden with a 100%. This to me seems like a really weird interaction, which is for sure not intended, but it turns your king into an insane tank, which is with the Rage Vial even better, because you have an unkillable demon inside the base, which deals even more damage. And because of this, the ranking is then looking a little different. It's looking exactly like this. Because you can clearly tell the Rage Vial and the Epic King equipment is having quite some synergy. But again, we have a strategy with the Rage Vial is not as great. And let's start again with the air spam with the dragon attacks. On this one, you want to have a slow king. You don't want to have the craziest damage king. You want to have a slow king, which is staying close to the queen, because if the king is running ahead of her, he is not doing anything. The recommended combination here is actually the Earthquake Boots with the Giant Gauntlet. If you want to have the super tanky king, then you can go with the Vampire Stash as well. But the Earthquake Boots are quite nice, especially if you're using the Healer Puppet on your queen, so you can turn your queen into even a queen charge later on, which is then diving into the base, and it's having the Unicorn and 3 healers on her, which is giving her a lot of power. So it's a really good combination, one of the best if you're looking for any dragon type attacks for sure. And with that, we're going for the next smash attacks, and on smash attacks, we have again the super common equipment, which means on boulder attacks, on super witch attacks, on titan attacks, whenever you're doing those attacks, you want to have this king because you have the warden typically close by, and you're turning your king into like a demon taking down the entire base. As long as this feature is in the game, this tier list won't change. Always the best 2 equipments for most of those strategies are going to be epic equipment, the gauntlet with the Rage Vial. The synergy is just insane. The same thing then is happening with the Queen Charge Root Riders, Queen Charge Lalo. All of those strategies can abuse this feature. The same thing goes with the Super Archer Blimp. You typically try to actually not use the Warden ability for the Blimp to make sure that you have this interaction later in your attacks. And the same thing as well then with the Hero Dive. Being a bit different though, because for the Hero Dives, you just want to have a burst of damage, take down one compartment, and then the king is alright to go down. You don't want to have this king with the Vampire Stash and stuff like that staying alive. It's just like diving to a compartment, taking for the queen, and then it's fine. He did his job. With that, this is already the king equipment. Pretty easy with this feature right now. But now we're getting into the interesting part, because the warden is having a lot of options. Because for the Warden, we have the most equipments being viable. Yes, we have clearly an overall winner with the invincibility with the Eternal Tome, but otherwise, every single equipment is viable depending on the strategy. So let's start things off with the air spam. Electro Dragons, for example, are working great with the Eternal Tome and the Healing Tome together, because having more damage on your Warden means less lightnings, and this is obviously bad for Electro Dragons. This is why the Rage and the Life Gem are both not that optimal. If we're talking then about Super Dragons or Hydra attacks, both of them can use the Healing Tome or the Rage Gem. Both of them are fine to use, but again, the important thing is to use the Eternal Tome. This is pretty much for the air spam. Let's talk about the smash attacks. And this one is going to be crazy, because for super bonus, we're going with the Eternal Tome and the Life Gem, because you need the bonus hit points on the super bonus, otherwise they just go down way too quick. Yes, the Rage Gem is quite nice, but you're relying on the Apprentice Warden to stay alive to keep your bonus then alive. And the Apprentice Warden, we all know it, likes to run ahead, likes to do stupid things, and with that he's going down quickly. So this means for me, for sure, the Life Gem is really recommended. The Rage Gem, again, works great with Super Witches, which is Smash type attack as well. It works great with the Electro Titans, for example. So overall, there's a ton of options which you can go for, and it really depends on the troops, which I have just mentioned and listed. But let's move on now to the next one, which is the Queen Charge. On this one, again, it depends on the follow-up. On a Queen Charge with Root Riders right now, you're going with the Eternal Tome and with the Healing Tome. With the Lalo as a follow-up, you're going with the Eternal Tome and with the Life Gem. With, for example, I don't know, like Hog Riders and something like that, you would probably go with the Eternal Tome and with the Life Gem. Hybrid, you can go with both. You can go Eternal Tome and Healing Tome, and Eternal Tome and Life Gem. I think the Life Gem might be a little bit better on this one. But you can already see there is so many options and so many strong combinations that the Warden is just stacked with powerful equipment. But for the next one, we have the Super Archer Blimp. On this one, again, 2 options work. We have the Rage Tome, which works great overall because you typically have no spells left with your Super Archer Blimps taking all of the spells already. So having a Rage Aura around your troops on the back end is amazing. But something which works as well if you're going with Root Riders and some Super Barbarians, keeping them alive is amazing because they are your wall breakers. So the Healing Tome again works great as well. The Life Gem is not as much recommended. On hero dives, it depends on the follow-up. The most common hero dive right now is with the lightning spells and with the Lalo together. For that one, again, Lalo and the Life Gem synergize just so well that I would always go for that combination. But with having now all of those different rankings combined, the question is still open: which hero, which equipment should you upgrade now first? And we have a clear winner here. The Giant Gauntlet, the epic equipment from the Barbarian King, is just better than anything else. Especially with, on top of it, with the current feature where the interaction of the Eternal Tome and the King ability is happening. If you're wondering because you never unlocked this epic equipment, don't worry, you will always be able to unlock epic equipments unlocked from events, like a few months after the event from the trader for gems. What the exact time is or how many gems exactly you have to pay for that, Supercell has not mentioned it, but don't worry, you will be able to unlock them eventually. The same thing obviously is happening to the Frozen Arrow. But the best equipment you can tell right now in the game, because it's just so clearly out of place, it feels like, is the Giant Gauntlet. Otherwise, what hero should you prioritize? Well, there is always something to know when it comes down to the level, and that is obviously an important thing as well for the Giant Gauntlet if you're leveling it, because there is some thresholds from level that you should always try to cross. I have obviously linked everything down below with an Excel sheet to know like the prizes and the power level, but for the Giant Gauntlet, for example, it is level 15. Level 18 is a nice level, but level 21 is really important as well, because with 15 and 21, for example, you get 1%, 1 second extra on the duration of the ability, which is crazy. Another second is giving you a ton of value. So level 15 and 21 should be for sure level you're aiming for if you heavily commit your ores to one equipment. Otherwise, what should you go for in this list? What is the most important hero to upgrade, and what are the equipments for that? Well, I would argue right now the strongest hero, even though we have the Giant Gauntlet in the game, is the Warden. The Warden is having such an insane impact, and especially for the higher tower level where you have so many troops and everything. The auras, the Warden Eternal Tome, stuff like that is giving you so much value that you should always prioritize the Warden abilities first. Pick the Warden abilities you need the most and then go for the upgrades. As I said already, level 15, level 18, those are the important thresholds you want to meet and you want to get there. If you're level 16 and you have unlocked the Royal Champion and the Fox together, then I would argue you should go for the equipment for the Royal Champion next. Both of them are great. We have more damage as base stats, more hit points, but as well the Seeking Shield can be a game changer on the higher tower level, because this means you will one-shot max out mortars, which can be a big difference maker on the back end or for cleanup in general. So, the Royal Champion will be my second recommendation then after the Warden and after this one equipment of the Barbarian King. After that, you could go for the Queen. The Queen doesn't have the craziest equipment overall, you have to say. I mean, it's nice to have. The Queen is still a strong hero, but the equipment of the other heroes, especially the Warden, feels like more impact, and especially the synergy between the Fox and the Royal Champ are just better in my opinion. Otherwise, the Queen is then your next option, and again, you're following the same steps. Get things to level 15 to level 18, or if you're talking about epic equipment, go to level 21. Those are the important thresholds to meet, and that's pretty much what you should go for in my opinion when it comes down to those equipments. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it was really helpful to find maybe your best equipment combinations and synergies for your specific strategies. Let me know what you would like to see next. And as well, I hope I will see you guys back tomorrow with the next video. Until then, see ya and bye bye.